So we are starting everything like from scratch, but this time around, like we are going to focus on building a particular application, right? It's not going to have much functionality. It's just going to be basically HTML, CSS, and if you can see from this application, you can see that this is what we call a header in HTML. You can see the color is going from something like light blue in this part of the screen, and when you come to this part of the screen, like it's kind of like deep blue. Then we have one, two, three tabs here. We have a logo here. We have one, two, and three tabs here. If you look at this last tab that we have here, it contains an image and also contains the name of the person. So this is what we are actually going to try to implement. I don't think 1 hour will be enough for us to implement everything because like we are going to be explaining some things as we are moving along. So but anywhere we reach and it stops, then we'll continue from there. Before we go detailed into this, if you have any question, please, yes, don't forget to like ask me. Like, just raise up your hand and I'll come back to that. Yeah, Joseph. Hello. Okay, I'll be moving ahead. So, what's HTML? What's CSS? And we forget about JavaScript for now. HTML is the basic layout of our web page. How we represent the blocks that we are going to be using for our application. Just as we looked at this particular application here, if you look at this, we can see that this looks like it's inside a container. The header itself is a container, and that container looks like it contains seven different blocks of objects, which is one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, right? It's our HTML that actually defines this layout, how we want our web page to look like. Now, the CSS is what beautifies the page. It's because of the CSS we are able to have this color looking like it's light blue and then moving to this side and it's looking like it's actually very deep blue. It's our CSS that makes this image to look very small like this and makes it look round. So CSS is kind of like is a style sheet of our application. It's giving our application life. If you want to think about the HTML, like when you're doing fashion designing and you have all those people that do the pattern drafting, cut out how the clothes should look like, then you can think about the CSS like the styling itself, um, bringing everything together to make it look cool. That's what the CSS is there for. So the first thing I'm going to do is I already have my project here. I have images already. These are the images I'm going to be using. The first image we have here is the logo, is the icon, right? If you look at what we have in our application here, you can see that we have like one small this that says SE, right? And then the next thing that we actually have here, this is an SVG. This SVG contains the logo. It represents this particular social editor that you're seeing here. So I'm going to start by creating an index.html page, and I'm also going to be creating a style sheet too, and then I'm going to be connecting the both of them together so we can see how everything works, right? um, you can actually come here if you like, or you can use the command prompt to create the file if you want to. I'm just going to create this index.html. You can think about index.html as the entry point into your application. Anytime you host this application, the first page that is going to run is actually the index.html, except you specify otherwise. So we are going to be using index.html as the default, and then I'll be creating another file. So I'll be calling it style.css. This is going to contain our style sheet, and we are going to be linking the both of them together. But let's forget about the style sheet for now. Right now, we are just focusing on HTML. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type this. Once I start typing HTML, you can see that I have like three options. There's this particular plugin that comes with VS Code. It's called Emmet, and it helps us to write code very quickly. So with this plugin, I can just select this HTML colon 5, and I'll hit the tab key, and it's going to autocomplete the code for me. So if I do this, you're going to see like a basic HTML layout. If you want me to do that again, I'll go through that again. So I'm just going to Ctrl Z and do that again. So what I'm doing here is to type HTML. Even before I complete it, I just select HTML colon 5 and I hit tab, and it's going to autocomplete for me. If I wanted to do the one with XML, I will just come here and do tab, and it's going to complete that for me, but I'm not working with this right now. What we want to work with is HTML5. Somebody has a question.
So my question is, like me now, I don't know like anything. So like I'm assuming that now to create that web page or that app that we store, the first thing for us to do create a new project or new file on this VS Code. Create a file index.html, create style.css. Then that index.html now, at the where I'm a little bit confused is, it was blank before. Then you said we should select I didn't see the selection part very well.
Okay, okay. Let me do this. I'm coming. Let me see the into my main project and just open it instead. Then I'm going to do that part again. Okay, it's already open. So this is what I just did. Remember, I already have this folder here, which I will share with you guys, because you currently don't have that. I have my folder. My main folder is called main. This is where my project is going to live inside. It's called main here. So if you look at this place, if I do pwd, you can see my folder here. This is my folder structure. Inside my documents, tutorial, social editor, I have a folder called main. So inside that main folder, I have basically three things. I have an images folder. The images folder has the logo and has the icon, right? The next thing I have is index.html file, which is currently empty. The next thing I have is the style.css2, which is currently empty. So right now we are focusing on the index.html file. So the first thing I'm doing here, inside the index.html file, I start typing HTML. HT. Before it completes the HTML, I'm selecting the second option. Are you with me? Chibi, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm
Okay.
with you.
So I'm selecting the second option and I'm hitting tab to autocomplete. So when I click on tab, because the thing is highlighted on the second option, when I click on tab, it's going to bring the basic layout for a HTML5 project. Just going to do that for me. So I just hit tab, and then we have this. You got that part right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So this is basically the basic stuff that we need to create a HTML page. We need one, the HTML tag. Two, we need the header tag. And three, we need the body tag. If you look at this stuff, you will notice that usually you have an opening and closing tag, opening and closing tag, opening and closing tag. The only one you have like just one tag is this doc type. This doc type that you have here tells your interpreter that we are dealing with an HTML5 document, and so it knows how to interpret it. Just know that this particular one is what's telling our browser that this is HTML5. So this is a way to write comments in HTML. So comments are these are codes that are not going to actually show in our web page, but you can use it to write something so that you can explain to somebody that's going to be looking at your code or your own self what this part is meant to do. I'm not supposed to write anything here, but I just want to just explain that this particular one you're seeing here, this line 1, is telling the browser that this is a HTML HTML5 document. Before we had HTML5, there are different types of HTML, like that XML that you saw. There was HTML, I said 3 point something, I think actually 4 to, I can't really remember, but the default stuff that everybody uses now is HTML5. So we need this doc type declaration. We don't even need to think about it since we use this emmet to auto populate everything for us, but we need to know that this actually exists, right? These are HTML5. So we're not going to basically bother on this. We are going to move to the remaining three declarations that we have, which is this first one, HTML5. HTML. Everything about our web page is going to be written in between this tag and this tag. You can see we have the opening tag here and we have the closing tag here. If I was to write this on my own, usually what I like to do is to, if I was not going to use the emmet, I'm just going to do something like this. And I'll write HTML and I'll write HTML here. This is the opening and closing tag, and then anything I need to write needs to be inside here. Everything that we are going to be doing needs to be inside this opening and closing tag for the HTML. Please, if you have any questions, please don't forget to ask. So that's the first part.
Hello, good evening, sir. I have a question, sir.
All right.
Sorry, is it HTML and CSS for doing today, sir?
We are building a project.
Okay, sir. Hey, family project is okay, sir. Okay, sir.
We are building this particular project that you're seeing. We are building a project, but this is the starting point of the project. We are trying to build this header for the project, which contains everything that we are seeing here. So we are getting to that point, right?
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay. So we have the head, and then we have the body. So let's concentrate on the head first of all. We are not going to explain too much stuff inside this head tag, but if you look at this head tag, you can see we have a meta tag here. We have a meta tag here, and we have like a title element. These are called elements. So this is the header element, this is the body element, this is the title element. We don't need to bother ourselves with this particular two for now, right? But what we need to look out for is actually this title tag. Now I'm going to go back to, before I go back, I've never even shown the web page that we are viewing here. So I'm going to use this PWD to get the link, and then I'm just going to put this. So if you're using a Linux system or a Mac, you can use the PWD command to get your directory. I think I don't know what we will use for Windows. So you can actually check the one that you're going to use for Windows to just get the directory that you're in. But if you know how to read the paths on your system, you can type it out on the browser and then just do a / index.html. So sorry, so I'm going to my browser. This is where we are right now, / index.html. For those that have gone past this, I'm not using live server currently. What I'm just using the web page itself, because we can actually view that without the live server. But what it means is that with every change in code, I need to save it and then I need to refresh my browser. So this is what our web page looks like. If you notice something between where we are going to and where we are at right now, you will see that we have app here, but here we have documents. Now this document correlates with what you are seeing in between your title tag. So if I want to change that to app, what I need to do is to come into the title tag and then remove the document and change this to app, and then I save. I press Ctrl S, or if you have autosave already enabled on your VS Code, it saves automatically for you. So for those that don't have autosave enabled, if you need autosave enabled, you can come to the file section here and click on this. Make sure that autosave is ticked here if you want it to be enabled. So if you don't want it to be enabled, just untick it. But I want it to be enabled, so I just click autosave, so I don't need to press Ctrl S when I'm working, it's going to do that for me automatically. So this is already saved here. What I'm going to do is to go back to my browser, and then I'll refresh this page, and then I'll see that this is going to become up. Do we get that, or you want me to run through that again?
Are you running Linux,
Yes, yes.
VMware?
No, 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 no.
Oh, so that means you booted your system in Linux.
Yes, I'm just using Linux like straight.
Maybe that's why that this thing didn't work that time.
No, 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 no. I think I've shared screen with this stuff before. It's supposed to work. It's supposed
Okay,
to work.
okay.
I'll check out why it no work, sha. You see, I just installed this particular. I reinstalled my Linux, so is this like a fresh system for me? Something happened with the previous one I was using, so I reinstalled it. I've not even done some setup already here. It's basic stuff that I just have. But I'm going to figure out why that stuff happened. So, does anyone have any questions so far? Should I move ahead? Like, if you are fine with this, you can give me a thumbs up. Let's go ahead. Okay, okay. So I'm going to move ahead, and then I'm going to try to do something, right? So that we will notice something. Let's just see something on the web page. Let it not look white. So I'm just going to write just my name. So I'm going to refresh the page. So you can see what I wrote here. What I'm trying to prove by doing this is to tell you that anything that you write inside the head tag is not going to appear on your web page. What we mainly see on our web page is the body tag. You can see the title actually did not show in this particular section that we have here. It only appears up here. Most of the things that we write inside header tag will not be visible to the user, except for stuff like maybe the icon of the application or the title. The rest of the stuff we are going to be doing there is not going to be visible to the end user. Everything that we want to be visible to the end user needs to be within the body tag. So right now I'm going to add some other stuff to the header tag, and then we are going to see them appear, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is to add the icon. And how am I going to add the icon? The thing that I need to do to add the icon is to call the link tag. I'm still going to use Mnet, so I'm just going to type link, right? And then I'm going to select fave icon, and I'm just going to click tab, and then it's going to autocomplete for me. I'm going to come here. I'm going to change the relationship to icon. Now, I'm going to need you to actually follow me on this. Now, I'm going to change this href. What is this href all about? This href is pointing to the parts where our icon is currently saved on our system. So I'm going to start by copying this icon here. I'm going to copy it from here, and I'm going to paste it here first of all. This icon is actually favicon.png. So I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to change this to png. So notice that this href is pointing to where the icon is. So I'm calling the name of the icon alone, favicon.png. Now the type of the image is image / it's not an X icon. It's image / png. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to refresh the page again. You're going to notice something when we look at that title tag above on the browser. So when I refresh this, you can see we have our icon here. I'm going to go through that again, right? So we actually let me just do that on the second line here. I'm type in the link icon. You can even use the link straight and just do this, but it's going to bring you style sheets. So the first thing I need to do is to point to where the file is. This is the file here. It's called favicon.png. I'm going to select that. The relationship, what type of file is it? It's an icon. I want it to be the icon of this particular web browser. And what is the type? The type, I'm going to type image/png. Right. And so when we refresh that, we are seeing this particular image here, which is our icon. But if you look at my project, I actually didn't put this here. If I delete this from here, which I'm going to do because it's actually inside the image folder, it's not here. If I delete this from here and I refresh the page, I'm not seeing this particular stuff again. There's something about HTML and CSS that is different from JavaScript. When you make an error in JavaScript, it most definitely will, or most probably will fail. You will see an error message or something, but HTML and CSS is not going to give you an error message. You might just see an empty file, or it just tries to interpret it the best way it can. So you need to be very, very careful when you're writing HTML and CSS. You might intend to write something and then you're going to see something else that's like what you did not intend to happen. So you just need to be very, very careful when you're writing all this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is to actually point to these particular images that we have. So how am I going to point to it? This is our HTML file. It is on the same level with our images folder and not with our favicon folder. So for me to actually call this particular icon, the first thing I need to do is to go into the image folder. So I'm going to type images first of all. This is the folder. I'll type images. Now inside the image folder, I can then call the name of the favicon.png and do that. And so when I refresh this, I should be able to see my icon now. I don't know if that makes sense. Is anybody with me? Does that make sense? You want me to go through it again?
Please, can you come back again for that favicon icon?
Okay. Which part do you want me to go through? Like, is it the linking of the href?
No, I just wanted to see this thing again. Okay, the link relation icon. Okay, no problem. Okay, I've gotten it. Oh, thank you.
Okay. So this is how we point to the favicon right here. So that part is already gone. So I'm going to be doing two more things now. I want to use a different font size for all our text, right? That's number one. Number two, I want to use something called font awesome. So to be able to get these particular icons that we are seeing here, I don't have those icons. I'll be using a library called font awesome, right? And so I'll need to be pointing to it. And the last thing I'll need to actually be doing is to be pointing to our style sheet, because we want our HTML to contain only the layout, and we want the CSS to contain the styling. It's possible for you to mix the styling inside the HTML, but we don't want to do that. We want to do what we call a separation of concern. Let HTML handle layout, let CSS handle the style sheet. So I'm going to be pointing to the style sheet for Lato. I've already opened that here on this browser here. Yeah, okay. I have that for font also. So what I did is to come to this particular website. You can see here, cdnjs.com / blah 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 font awesome. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy any of this link. I'm going to copy this one, the first one though. I'm going to copy this link from this particular website, right? I'm going to come, let me paste the website here on the group chat. Um, um, give me a moment. So I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so we have that. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to be using this link tag again. I'm going to be using a link tag to link to that particular file. So I'm just going to type link, and I'm just going to hit tab again, right? Now in the href, instead of pointing to an image, I'm going to paste the link to that link that I copied for the font awesome. I'm just going to paste it here. Now this is already style sheet. That's how I want it to look like. So I think we are cool with that. The next thing I need to do is to search for the one for the little font I'm going to be using, because I don't want to use the fonts that we have. So what
Sorry, sir.
okay.
Sorry, sir. The pictures you used, is it on the group, sir?
No, it's not yet
For
on the
the
group. No, it's not on the group.
because in case you so can use it also.
No, you can use any image you want to use, it's fine.
Okay.
Yes, you can just point to any image. You don't need to use this one in particular. Okay. So the next I'm going to look for here is Lato, because this is the font that I want us to use, right? I'm going to check for this. Enter now. Now I'm going to copy this link also, and I'm going to be doing the same thing for this Lato. So I'm just going to type link and hit enter. Tab bar, and then I've done this. So we've done two things. We've been able to link to these two CSS file. One is for font awesome, one is for the Lato font. The last thing I'm going to actually be doing now is pointing to my own style sheet, because the style sheet that we have is where we are going to be doing all our styling. So what I'm going to do is still going to use that link tab, right? Now the href, instead of pointing to an external file, I'm going to be pointing to style.css. So I'm going to have a style.css here, and so that's just all we need right now in our header tag. Now I'm going to say some things here. You can see this style sheet is pointing to what we have here, while the remaining, just hold on please, the remaining two we have here are pointing to what we call external style sheets. I'm not the one that wrote those ones. Someone else wrote all those ones there, and I want to use what somebody else has written. It's always good to be able to reuse codes. I don't need to create something from scratch. That's why we are pointing to these very two that we have up here. So any question please?
You just actually answered what I wanted to ask, because I wanted to ask where the style sheet, where this one was pointing to, that is the style sheet style.css. I now saw, you now made it clear.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the next thing I want to do now is to actually build the layout of our application. And remember, I told you that what we are just doing today is just to build the header, right? So what I'm actually going to try to do here is to just put the layout. I want us to be thinking about stuff like containers and trying to break it down. You need to visualize what you have here and take it like so. This is what happens like in typical web development scenario. You have your UI UX guys, right, that will build they will actually design what they want you to build out using Figma. So you have your Figma sheet. It's going to contain some kind of design. Now you're the one that needs to interpret that, take that from Figma and then create it on your create it using HTML and CSS. Then you can use your JavaScript or the rest for for interactions, right? So we are going to be looking at this right now, like our Figma file, even though we know it's not Figma. This is where we want to get to. As I've explained already in the beginning, we already have these different sections. We have the logo, we have all this stuff here. I'm going to be using buttons for this. So this is going to be a button. This is going to be a button. This is going to be a button. This is actually going to be a button, and a button. So I'm going to be making use of 6 buttons and this particular logo here. I'm going to be pointing to all of them. It's not going to look like this when we just start, but we are going to get to this end result at the end of the day. We'll be able to also put this hover effect. So if you look at when I put my cursor on file, you can see the hand logo, and then you can see that it's kind of like the color changes to something that is kind of lighter, right, for all of them. So I'm going to be building this out. So I will need one image, and I'm going to need 6 buttons, and that's what I'm going to be building here. So the first thing I'm going to have is the image tag. That first before I have the image tag, I'm going to have my full container, which is the header. Remember, it's an opening and closing tag. You can see it, header opened here, closed here. Everything I'm going to be doing is going to be in between this header tag. Now the next thing I need to do, the first very thing I need to do is to create an image tag that is going to hold that logo. I can just press this. Now the source of the image is going to point to where this image is. Remember, I told you that we have like 2 images inside this image folder. The first one is the favicon, which we've already pointed to up here. The next one is actually the logo.svg. So you can use an SVG, you can use a PNG, you can use a JPEG, whatever type of image you want to use. You just need to just call it in the source here. So the source here is telling you where is our image. Your image can be an external image through just the same way we have external style sheet. You can also call an external image, probably it's on another website, but it's available. You just need to point to that particular image. But since it's actually inside here, the first thing I'm going to be doing is to go into the images folder, and then I'm going to call the logo.svg. So that's the first thing I need to do. Now the alt, in this alt attributes, these are called attributes. So this source is an attribute, this alt is an attribute, the image is a tag. If before we get into the next thing, let me just complete this alt. So I'm just going to write here, I'm going to say this is web app logo. So that's what I'm going to write as alt. So if our web page is loading very slowly, the user will actually see something like this web app logo before our web page loads, which is also going to help people that it's actually going to help your users. Instead of them looking at what's supposed to be here, what's supposed to be here, they know that, oh, this is supposed to be a logo, though they are not seeing the logo yet. So that's actually fine. If you notice something with this image tag, it does not have an opening and closing tag like the header, like the body, like the head tag. It's just one tag. So there are some elements that are actually like this. So not all elements have like opening and closing tag. If you look at the link tag too, it's actually still the same thing. It does not have an opening and closing tag. Some need it, some don't actually use it. So you can keep that in mind while working with this. So I've saved this, right? And I'm going to refresh my page. Not this. No. We can't actually see anything right now because our logo is actually a white image. It's somewhere around here, but we can't see it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the remaining buttons, and then we'll come back to that later. So I'm going to be adding 6 buttons. Okay, there's a question.
If you do Control A on the screen on that web page, will it show that something is there? Like since it's white.
Control A.
Okay, that show up left corner.
Yeah. We can actually even try to do something. There's something that we need to get used to, which is inspecting the elements. If you inspect your web page, you will actually see the HTML. Even for those websites you're seeing, you can see this here. That's that particular stuff you can see here. Look at it here, right? It's pointing here. You can see your header tag, you can see your body, you can see the head here. So we have all those things inside here. If you need to look at how your images look like and how your web page looks like, and then try to figure out some things in case it's not even working properly, just inspect the web page and inspect that particular element. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create 6 different buttons. I'm going to first of all create one, and just going to duplicate the rest. So I'm going to have button. So we have the button element for HTML too. Sorry, it's like I'm not taking you through HTML, but we will be meeting lots of elements as we are building this, and then you can actually go to W3 schools too and try to figure out, look at some elements yourself to see. Just try to mess around with some of them. You're not going to need everything, but you need to. Oh, I think that we have like less than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. We have less than 15 minutes. Okay, so I'll do as much as we can in this 15 minutes. At least let's lay out this HTML structure. So I'm going to have a button tag here. The button tag also has a opening and closing tag, as we can see. I'm going to do something. I'm going to be giving this a class, and then I'm going to be calling this class nav button. So this is one way of creating a button. I'm going to show you a second way of creating a button using that emmet. So I could do it like this: button dot the name of the class, nav dash button, and press tab, and then it's going to auto handle that for me. If you need me to do that again, I'll go through it. So I created it the first way by typing everything out, right? But the second way you can actually do it in your VS Code is to type the name of the element, button. Since I want to attach a class to it, I'm going to put a dot, right? And then I'm going to write the name of the class. This is the name of the class I want to be attached to it. And then when I hit tab, it auto completes for me. So you have this button, and you have class, and you have navbar. That is the name of the class. The class attribute is nav button. I hope everybody got that. Like, that's cool, Abby. Is that?
Yeah, so it's like shortcut.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is a shortcut. I'm going to explain right now why we need class. What is a class? And then I will come to an ID too. So when you have a button, or when you have elements on your HTML page, you might have different types of buttons. I might have a button that says you remember when you are trying to interact with some applications and you probably want to delete something, you might see something like, are you sure you want to delete this? Then you see confirm, you see cancel. You see that the styling for the confirm is different from the styling for the cancel. They are all buttons, right? But I can actually attach different classes to it and call this particular class for confirm and call this particular class for cancel. So every button that I want to look like the button for cancel, I attach that particular class cancel to it. Every button that I want to look like the one for confirm, no matter where it is on the web page, I can attach that particular class to it. That's what the class is here for. We are using classes so that it's going to help us be able to style these buttons at once. I don't want to actually style just a button. I want to style nav buttons to look in a particular way, because remember, our buttons are actually just showing at the top here, right? And they're all the same type. I might have different types of button inside this particular place that I don't want to look like this. It's only this type of button I want to look like. and that's why I'm creating it with a class called nav button. So later on, when we are, let me talk about IDs, though we are not going to be dealing with IDs right now. So I can actually create a button with an ID too, and I will create it this way. I'll have button, and now instead of having a dot, I can actually do it with a hash. That is how we call IDs. And probably let me just call this just for demonstration purpose, but I'm going to delete this and I'm going to hit enter. Now you can see you have ID here instead of class. Now I can actually use this also to style a button, but it's best practice to style using class instead of IDs. We will leave IDs for JavaScript when we get to JavaScript, and we need to deal with unique elements. I don't want to have two different control buttons on my web page when I'm dealing with an ID. An ID needs to be unique. Though HTML will not force it to be unique, but you need to make sure that you have only one ID per web page. But we are not dealing with ID. We are not going to be using ID to style any element. We are only going to be using buttons. So I'm going to delete this. And I'm also going to delete this. Now I'm going to also, use a shortcut to duplicate this. I'm going to do Ctrl D. I'm going to do it 5 times, and then I'm just going to have this folder. If you're using a Mac, you can use Command D. Wait. Oh, didn't work. I'll use Ctrl C, Ctrl V. Ctrl C, and I'll just use V, 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 V. So not Ctrl D, Ctrl copy, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, 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 V. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 different buttons, right? So I'm going to start by typing all these things that we need here. So the first thing we can see here, we have file, we have view, and we have new. So I'm going to type them on the first 3 buttons that we have. I just forgot what I just said now. File, I think we have view, and we have new. Now the next 2 buttons we have are actually icons, so I will skip those 2 and I will come to this last one. So this last one has an image and has a name, so I'll be creating that particular last one, right? I'm skipping these 2. We'll come back to these 2 later. Let me first of all refresh the web page so we'll see what we have before we move ahead. So this is what we have. I think they brought my light like this. So this is what we actually have right now. We have 9 minutes left. Let me just try to round this up. So the next thing I'm going to actually do is try to create an image with a text, because it's what we have for that last button. I'm going to be copying that image. I'm going to go to Unsplash. There's this website called Unsplash. I'm going to be going there and I'm going to be creating any image. I'm going to be picking any image I just like. So I'm pointing to an external image this time around. Person. Let me see. Let me select this. Copy. I think image address. So I'm going to be using the image tag again, and then I'm just going to press this and put the link to this image, and I'm going to write here profile picture as the alt. Profile picture. Now I'm going to be introducing you to another element called the span element, and this is going to contain, when we want to write text, we should write it inside the span element, right? Span element, yeah, or tag if you like to call it that. And then I'm going to be writing the name in between that span tag. I'm going to be calling the name John Doe. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to refresh the page. now we have a very big image here. So the first thing I might want to do, I'm going to give this image a class, and then I'm going to start styling it. So let me just come here and write class equal to, I want to reduce the size of this image so that it doesn't look this big. I'm going to call this nav button image, nav button underscore image, and then I'm going to come to the CSS. So this is the first thing we are going to be styling. I just want it to look nice, and I'm going to say dot nav dash button image, and I'm going to have square brackets. So this is how we write styles in inside the CSS style sheet. We have what we call the selector. This is how I select the image. If you put your cursor on this, it's telling that this needs to be an element, right, with a class equals to nav button underscore image. Now what I want to do here is to set the width. I'm going to set the width to something like 30 pixel. I'm going to set the height to something like 30 pixel, and I'm going to refresh this page, and just this is going to tell us if our HTML is connected to our CSS. So I'm going to refresh this, and then you can see that the image is actually now smaller. So yes, our CSS is actually working, but image is not looking as nice as I would like it to look like, right? So what I can actually do here is there's a property called object fit. I want it to properly scale this image. I don't want it to look, although this is actually looking very tiny. Let me increase the size for now so we can see it. Let me call this 130 by 130. 130 by 130. And then I will refresh this so we can see the image better. I'm going to say object fits, and I'm going to call this to cover. So when I look at the image, it's now looking sharper, which is what I want. All right, I don't know if anyone has any question. I think we have to stop here today. Does anyone have any question? Is there anything?
The question I have is just like those to cover an object fit. There, so I can imagine that there are plenty styling. So is there something you can refer us to look at image styling? So because so that we will now have idea of other ones, like in case we want to experiment.
Most times you can just Google and just write
Okay.
like yes, something like this. You see documentation concerning it. It's the best thing to actually do. We need to read a lot of documentation. Even if I say something, like you need to go to the documentation and look at other things that actually work for it, right? So once you go to this, you see other options and explanations of what each stuff is supposed to do, and yep, you see a lot of all those things inside here. Look at the explanation here, and then you can try it. So this is what we have.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay. All right. I think we'll call it a day here. No problem, right? We don't have any issues.